Hey guys, it's Bella and welcome back to another episode of Mystery Monday, or welcome to Mystery Mondays if you guys have never seen one before. I do every Monday upload a video about unsolved mysteries, whether they are murders or missing people. I have an entire playlist of them which I will link below if you do want to see any more. I also want to mention two things before you get into the video because I know I will get asked, because I always do. The first thing is I do have a tutorial for the makeup look that I am wearing right now. So I will link that down below, but it should just be my last video because I'm planning on uploading this tutorial tomorrow, which is Sunday, and then this is Mystery Monday, which will be going up on a Monday. So even though it is linked down below, it should just be my previous video if you go to my channel. And second thing is that my earrings are from the brand Fawn Star. I will put a link for them in the description as well. This is not sponsored at all, but I just uploaded a selfie onto my Instagram stories and got a million comments about my earrings, so I thought that I probably would too here and just decided to mention it before we get started. So now that that is out of the way, let's go ahead and get into this week's mystery. So today we are going to talk about the disappearance of Lauria Bible and Ashley Freeman, who disappeared on December the 30th in 1999 from Welch, Oklahoma. And this case is really weird and really interesting, so let's go ahead and get into it. So on the 29th of December, Ashley was celebrating her 16th birthday at home with her mum Kathy, her dad Danny, her best friend Lauria Bible, and her boyfriend Jeremy Hurst. So Jeremy, Ashley's boyfriend, ended up leaving at about 9:30 p.m. that night, and then sometime between when Jeremy left and early the next morning on the 30th, the mobile home of the Freemans went up in flames. At 5:30 a.m. on the 30th of December, a concerned neighbor ended up calling the fire department. After the fire was put out, the police arrived at the scene to canvass the area, and in doing so, they found the body of Kathy Freeman. She had been shot in the head in close range with a shotgun before the fire started. None of the bodies of Danny, Laura, or Ashley were found, and so the police began to theorize that Danny had shot his wife and then kidnapped the two girls. Police then went ahead and just focused all of their efforts within, before 24 hours was even up, literally as soon as they got to the crime scene, probably within 30 minutes of getting to the crime scene, they decided to focus all of their energy on this theory, investigating this theory and investigating Danny. Okay, now get this, follow along pretty closely because I don't want anyone to get confused. At the time of these murders and disappearances, Danny, the Freemans, were actually in kind of like a feud or a dispute with the police department. Now this is because Danny's son Shane had been shot by one of the Craig County Sheriff's Department police because he stole a car. And then just before the disappearance murders took place, Danny was actually planning on filing a wrongful death lawsuit against the Craig County Sheriff's Office. Danny even told his brother Dwayne that if anything were to happen to Danny, that he should look into the sheriff's office because they were trying to intimidate him, and he thought that they would likely be the ones to have something to do with it. According to Dwayne, the sheriff's department told Danny that they could do anything they wanted with him and he couldn't do anything about it. Now, the reason that this is relevant is because the next morning, literally 24 hours after the crime took place, after police got there and investigated, they opened the crime scene to the public. Lauria Bible's parents ended up showing up after hearing the news, of course. They decided to have a look around, and within 5 minutes of arriving, they found Danny's body, who had also been shot in the head with a shotgun in close range before the fire began. Investigators then decided that they should probably do a better job of investigating the crime scene if some people could just come up and within 5 minutes find this body. So they had a bit more of a look. They found Laura's purse with her identification and $200 worth of cash inside the purse. Despite finding her purse, Laura and Ashley still were nowhere to be found. Now, it is insane to me that the police came, searched, found Kathy's body, somehow did not find Danny's body despite the fact that he was there. They then decided to investigate into Danny, focus all their efforts into the fact that Danny is definitely the one who did this, killed his wife, kidnapped his two daughters, and then within 24 hours opened the crime scene to the public. That is crazy to me. I don't think in a more realistic crime scene that they would have opened up the crime scene so quickly, especially considering they still needed evidence as to what happened to Kathy. I don't know, I just feel like that was really sus and really stupid. And what makes this even worse is the officers from the Craig County Sheriff's Office were completely dismissed as suspects. They weren't even looked into as suspects. They did a polygraph test and then they handed the investigation over to the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigations and basically wiped their hands clean of it. That was it. They didn't really question them. They didn't really investigate into them. Nothing. They just did a polygraph and that was it. Not even the guy who shot Shane was looked into or hardly questioned. And other than that, there were literally no suspects in this case. Ashley's boyfriend Jeremy was not a suspect. Laura's parents were not suspects, even though I didn't expect them to be. I don't think they had anything to do with this. There were no other suspects. And that is kind of basically the first theory that I just mentioned, is that the sheriff's department had something to do with this, whether they covered it up or whether they actually had something to do with it themselves. As Danny's brother said, they were actually trying to intimidate him. They told him that they could do whatever they wanted with him and his family and he couldn't do anything about it. Danny, just days before he was murdered, was planning on filing a lawsuit against the sheriff's department for the death of his son. They shot his son and they didn't even find his body in their searches when Jay Bible, within 5 minutes of arriving at the scene, could find his body, and they didn't even bother to look into any other leads besides the fact that Danny had done this. That's the only thing they looked into. It was like tunnel vision. All they could see was just Danny. The crime scene was opened way too soon after the investigations and there was little to no investigations into the sheriff's department at all. Now, I will be the first to admit that I think the sheriff's department did an absolutely terrible job. I think that they should all friggin' go to jail for not even bothering with this case. It just seemed like they didn't care at all. But I don't actually think that they had anything to do with it, because I just feel like some things don't really add up with this theory. I mean, first, why would they take Ashley and Laura? They had nothing to do with it. Their beef was with Danny, and it just makes no sense for them to kidnap these girls. Like, why on earth would they just take these girls? It makes no sense. Not to mention, if the sheriff's department did have anything to do with this, why would they open up the crime scene knowing that they killed Danny and didn't dispose of the body? Like, someone literally found his body within 5 minutes, and I feel like that is something that the sheriff's department would try and cover up before opening a crime scene. Like, that seems really, really low effort even for the sheriff's department. I honestly think the reason that they did such a shitty job is because of their feud with Danny. They were just focusing on him. They wanted to pin him because they didn't like him, and they didn't bother listening or looking to any of the other evidence because they were just like, this dude did it, we hate him, let's find him, let's pin it on him. So they didn't bother, you know, looking for his body properly because they just assumed she was dead and that was that, Danny did it. So I honestly don't think that they set this up or that they killed him, because there's too many inconsistencies. I do think that they did a horrible job and that they just didn't care and that they just wanted to focus on pinning Danny as this horrible guy because they didn't like him and possibly didn't want him to file this lawsuit, and he wouldn't have much credibility in filing the lawsuit if he killed his wife and kidnapped his 2 daughters. Now, another possible theory that was brought up is that Danny was a small-time drug dealer and that this was basically a drug deal gone wrong. But again, this theory does not make sense. As Jim Herman from the sheriff's department said, the last thing someone who came to murder people based on a drug deal gone wrong would want to do is take these 2 girls. It doesn't make sense why they would want to kidnap them, unless, you know, an even bigger theory is they decided to take these girls and traffic them, or, you know, I just feel like if they were gonna do that, they would just murder the 2 girls, if anything, because they didn't want them to speak about it. I feel like they wouldn't take the 2 girls, and nothing really fits with this theory. There was no real evidence to point to this theory, and yeah, nothing fits. No one thinks that this is what happened, nor do I. The thing that could make sense about this whole drug thing is that nobody ever found a gun, which I feel like, you know, drug dealers are pretty smart when it comes to like their murders and stuff. Like, they know how to commit crimes. and no one found the gun, no one found these two girls. They burnt the house to get rid of any evidence. I mean, when they found Danny's body, apparently it was almost hard to recognize him. So, I mean, it's possible. It's probably the most likely theory out of all the theories that I will tell you, which brings us to the next theory, which is that Ashley Freeman actually did this, murdered her own two parents, and then fled alongside Laura Bible. Apparently, at the time of the murders and the disappearances, Ashley and her father did not get along at all, and they hadn't for a while. This apparently caused a lot of conflict in the family, but again, this theory doesn't make sense. First, Laura left behind her purse with her cash in it, which you think if you were fleeing, you would want to take your cash. Second of all, how would these girls have survived with literally nothing and no money to buy food, nowhere to stay? How could they have fled the country without cars, without their license to be able to, I don't know, they couldn't drive. They didn't have anything to be able to flee. They didn't have any money. They had nowhere to stay. It just doesn't make any sense at all. It just seems like an extremely difficult task for these two 16-year-old girls to just disappear off the face of the planet, try and hide all the evidence of killing Ashley's parents with making a fire, hiding this gun. How would they get the gun? I mean, it just kind of seems unrealistic. Okay, so the last theory, well, this is not really a theory, this is more of like someone literally confessed. This guy named Jeremy Jones, he said that he murdered both Kathy and Danny over a drug debt that his friend owed, and he just did it as kind of like a favor. He says he then took the two girls to Kansas, shot them both once in the head, and then dropped them down an abandoned mine. But when investigators went to go see the mine that he said they were at, there was no bodies found there, so they think that this guy was lying, because he actually did end up recanting his theory and saying that he didn't kill them and that he only said this so that he could get better food and more phone privileges. So I don't believe this guy's confession at all. Which I know whenever I mention that someone confessed, I get so many comments being like, well, someone confessed, so it was obviously them. There are a lot of reasons that people confess when they did not actually do something, whether it was coerced or whether it was for their own personal gain. So like I said, he literally confessed so that he could get more phone privileges and better food, and that's all there is to it. I don't think that his confession was. And that is it for this case. I know this was a really short one, I'm sorry, but I just found it way too interesting not to include this in a Mystery Monday, even though it was short. Next week, I promise I will bring you guys a better one that will be like 20 minutes long, because I know how much you love them. But do let me know in the comments what theory you believe, or if you have any theories that I didn't mention, let me know in the comments of what you thought, what you think of this case, any evidence that I may have missed out. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you do enjoy Mystery Mondays and want me to do more, and hopefully I will see you in my next video. Bye!